a hybrid Caterpillar tunnel, if you will. It is our high tunnels, for our application, where we'll use a traditional Caterpillar tunnel in the field. So this farm has just been about like what is like the minimum build we can do, like the simplest structures that have the best end results.
So Eric, you're leasing this land, and one of the things you've really focused on is portable, I'll say temporary, non-permanent infrastructure. This Caterpillar tunnel is an example of that. For you, why this type of infrastructure versus something more permanent?
We tried to build this whole farm off of that portable modular idea, and so one, we wanted to make it inexpensive. Two, we wanted to make it easy to build, and three, we wanted to make it with all like really locally like available materials. And so instead of going like a kit, we decided to just use a bender and bend our own hoops for these tunnels, and then we could buy those materials again locally. We did have to make some adjustments from like a normal, like standard Caterpillar tunnel. We wanted our height to be a little bit more. We wanted straighter, flatter sides. So we used ground posts to make them a little bit more secure. Raised the ceiling a little bit, which gave us a little bit more room to trellis our tomatoes and our cucumbers and that sort of thing. But we still like the idea of like the paracord and being able to just easily raise the sides without using like the roll-up cranks. And then we didn't want to use like the bunched plastic at the ends because we're so space constrained. We didn't want to have that into the pathways, and so we went with like a flatter design, and we've worked through a couple different renditions of that. Initially tried the scissor door and didn't really like how stable it was, and it just seemed kind of clunky.
On a scissor door itself, can you give me an example of how that would be on here for people who are watching? They're not familiar with the scissor door. So normally on the Caterpillar tunnel, like you're saying, you'd have that bunched end coming out, and you have what, 10 feet in between these tunnels.
Yep.
So you wouldn't be able to walk in here if both these tunnels had that.
Right.
One alternative is the scissor door.
Yep.
What would that look like?
So the scissor door, we would skin the end wall like this, and then we'd split the plastic and use a pivot point at like the lodge pole, and then we'd have two pieces of pipe that hinged off of that and swung down, and we'd attach one half of that plastic to one and one to the other, and so that they would just scissor out from the center and allowing you to have full access into there. But again, yeah, it just didn't seal up very tightly, and they just kind of flapped around a lot in the wind and that, so it just wasn't what we were looking for.
Right. So the alternative that you went with, which never seen this before, you have zippers, and these are construction zippers.
Yep. Adhesive
on the back.
Yep.
So you just stick it to the poly where you want the door to be, unzip it, cut it, and now you have a flat door that zips shut on either side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we again skinned the whole end wall, stuck on these zippers that we were able to get really easily, for that construction application, and then unzip them, cut a slit where that seam would be, and that allows us, we can roll up and basically open up the entire end wall. Get good ventilation, allows us to get our walking tractor in there with ease, so far so good. It's an experiment, so I don't know how it'll hold up to everything, but it's worth a try.
Worth a shot.
Yeah.
One other way you've kind of taken the Caterpillar tunnel to the next level, beefed it up a little bit, is you added a wax-based ventilation vent. This is 12 by 12.
Yep.
The idea here is just to have it automatically vent out heat as needed, when needed. This is something new you're trying, or have you done this before?
We did it on our prop house, and it's not, we didn't do it for like the total ventilation. It's more of it's a backup for us, because myself and my team, we're all human, and there's times where you don't get to open those tunnels soon enough, or you need some sort of visual indication. So we look to those that when they're opening up, we know that's warming up in there. It also gives us a little buffer if somebody's a little late to open that up. Hopefully it allows some of that heat to go out. But yeah, it's gonna let that top peak escape a little bit better.
For a tunnel like this, we're in Phoenix. I mean, it's hot right now in early mid-December. What are you putting in this tunnel when? You know, you have stuff in the field right now. You do get cold nights, so how are you utilizing these in your climate?
Sure. Yeah, our temperature swings are crazy. So 3 nights ago, we were down to 24 degrees, but then daytime temperatures are, mid to high 60s, early, low 70s. Today we're going to be mid 70s. But we built these tunnels with the idea of we wanted low tech, we wanted no supplemental heat or cooling for anything we grew in there. So we're trying to do, and we were successful last winter, and then we're just kind of dialing that in this year of doing cucumbers, tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, that sort of thing. Some of those things that, because our freezing temperatures it's just a small couple hours where it dips down there. So all we have to do is protect it for that those few hours.
A short window.
And so we can do that without using heaters and that sort of thing for the most time. Sometimes, it's too much, and we're not banking on this kind of stuff, but it sure is nice to be the one with some tomatoes and cucumbers and that sort of thing at the markets when nobody else does.
So just a single layer of poly is enough to protect them, given that you don't have, like you said, the cold temperatures for extended periods of time.
Right.
You get the heat in the day to warm the plants up. Looking at this tunnel itself, it's how wide by how long?
100 feet long, 12 feet wide.
12 feet wide. How much do you think you have into it?
It's not much. With the vents and all that, probably, I don't know, $1,000, $1,200, something like that. It's pretty inexpensive.
So not bad. And for somebody who's looking to start out on a farm, how do you view a Caterpillar tunnel versus row cover versus a high tunnel? Let's say you own the property and your land tenure is not an issue. So if you build it and you have the money, but how would you look at a Caterpillar tunnel relative to in the field coverage, relative to something more permanent?
Sure. I mean, still the end goal, if you own land and you can give yourself more square footage in a single structure and more height, I think that's the way to go. But these are a hybrid Caterpillar tunnel, if you will. It is our high tunnels, for our application, where we'll use a traditional Caterpillar tunnel in the field. So this farm is just a bit about like what is like the minimum build we can do, like the simplest structures that have the best end results. So our bows are 10 feet apart, which is pretty wide, and if we had snow load and things like that, we wouldn't be able to do that sort of thing. But because we don't, we can underbuild quite a bit. And so this farm has been about an experiment of like what's good enough, what's the minimum we can do to have good results.
And you've trellised off of these. You've had 3 rows of tomatoes, cucumbers, any vining crops, so they're strong enough to support the weight of those crops and no issues. But then you also, in the summer, like you're not going to want this poly on there potentially, because with 100+ degree heat, you're going to fry anything under there. So you can take it off, or you can put shade netting on. What's been your trial and error process on dealing with summer temperatures in these structures?
Yeah, the structures are great for as a shade cloth, and the shade just came off about a week and a half ago. But yeah, we use 30 and 50% shade cloth depending on what we're growing underneath them, and use the wiggle wire channel just the same to just put that on there. And we've been experimenting with leaving the poly on and then the shade cloth over the top, or removing it completely and just having shade cloth. And so we definitely are seeing better results with just the shade cloth, ventilation wise, and that just a little bit cooler underneath there. But there's the savings of being able to reuse that poly, and then just the labor involved. So we're trying to see if we can in fact leave it on there.
Sure. Right now you have poly essentially covering the whole outside surface. In the summer, if you're leaving the poly on, are you pulling it off on the bottom few feet to give some open air space? And similarly with the shade cloth, are you covering the whole surface, or do you leave the first few feet open for just increased airflow?
Yeah, the sides will be up all the time, so we have maximum ventilation. The end walls will either be completely open or just zipped up like this, so that you have good airflow from both ends. And then the shade cloth we leave about 2 feet on both ends. So again, because even shade cloth is going to restrict airflow in that, so we want to keep that, it's low enough where we're not going to have to worry about exposure in that, so we want that airflow as best as we can underneath there, so it sits about 2 feet above the bottom of the tunnel.
Here's a look at one of Erich's Caterpillar tunnels that doesn't have a poly skin on it right now. And I just wanted to show you some of the features on this that he was mentioning. You know, these are the tomahawk hooks that he's using to trellis tomatoes on. So this runs the length of the Caterpillar tunnel. There's 3 of them, one along the ridgepole, one on each edge. They're just held up with, you know, common fencing, chain link fencing, hardware. So this gives him some trellising ability. He also added this brace on. You don't see this stock on every Caterpillar tunnel to just firm up the end. And one reason he wanted this is because of this trellising itself. He was worried there would be a lot of weight on the system. The ends would want to pull in. So this brace just keeps those ends nice and 90 degree. The other thing that Erich's doing right here that you can see here and on the front is he's raised this up to square off this edge a little bit more to get this bottom edge higher and square. He's raised it up with some ground tubing, so his arches are going into that ground tubing, giving him more inside clearance and making this side straighter, where before the arch would hit the ground, this corner I wouldn't be able to stand in it, but with the added feature of having this ground tubing, he can. So one way he's modified these Caterpillar tunnels, and he's built them himself, so all this is DIY with stuff right from the hardware store. Makes it easy when you do it yourself. Right here you can see the channel lock on his outer edge of the frame itself. He could stretch the poly over this or the shade netting, put his wiggle wire in, and then get his nice flat front with the zippers, or however he ends up doing these end walls. But it looks like the zippers are the near-term trial solution and hopefully the permanent solution for him. You know, one of the challenges you have come summertime is growing greens, and greens are big business for small farms like this. You have to be able to grow them. But summer here is hot, and lettuce and hot temperatures don't always mix, but you've had some innovative ways to try and work around it. You know, one of the things that you've done is you've used these hoops to cover 2 beds.
Right.
You cover it with shade cloth, and then you run some micro sprinklers underneath it. Can you talk about your system and how you've adapted it and how it's working?
Yeah, I mean, again, pretty simple, trying to do things as low tech as possible, but one, we wanted to, you know, create a microclimate, and so the shade cloth helps with that. And then the micro sprinklers is not our form of watering the plants. We're still using drip irrigation for that, but we run these sprinklers down the center of 2 beds, and they just come on a few times a day for about 5 minutes just to cool down the plant. It hits the shade cloth itself, and again, it's almost evaporative cooling kind of effect, and it's just creating that little microclimate to kind of trick that plant into thinking it actually is cooler than it is. And so we've had good success with keeping it from bolting. Also flavor quality in that we haven't seen a huge decrease. It's still maybe not as great as a nice, you know, winter lettuce and that too, as far as the sweetness, but it's still really tasty, and it's lettuce in the summer, so it's been a great thing. In terms of shade cloth, you've mentioned you use 30%, you use 50% on the farm. Mm-hmm. For the lettuce, what do you keep it under? We're using 50 for the lettuce. 50. Yeah, just my general rule is what I would consider cool weather crops, like lettuce, we're going to use the higher shade cloth, the 50%. If we're trying to prolong our fruiting season for like our tomatoes, when they normally struggle to start setting fruit after that, you know, mid 90s, we'll use the 30% for that because that's enough for them, but it still gives them, you know, kind of maximum light and that. So that's kind of our general rule.
And are you doing that for establishment and then eventually you pull it back and off at some point, or do you leave it on for the life of your crops?
We leave it on for the life. At that point in the season, our prop house is covered with 50%, so it's starting out there, and if we were putting it on and taking it off, I feel like it's just too much of an adjustment for the crops to try to deal with in that, so we're trying to establish them and get them used to that kind of growing condition.
You know, for doing this, it's a lot of work, but you're doing some considerable poundage in terms of greens. You know, in the summer, what's your greens production to give people an example of how much you're doing?
It's probably still about 200 pounds a week of greens with our cut greens and our baby lettuce and that. So yeah. So
this system, and then how much does cultivar play into it, whether it's Muir or some of the other varieties?
Sure. You know, for lettuce, for like Salanova, our lettuce mix and that, it is what it is, right? And it's done really well. But yes, for our head lettuces that we're letting go even a little bit more mature, the cultivars definitely makes a big difference. So we use a lot of the Batavians, which are known for that that heat tolerance and that, and but we do some nice romaine that are again real well adapted for that as well. And so we've kind of experimented over the years with the ones that did the best with the heat, and then this last year just starting to add this layer with the shade cloth and the sprinklers made it go just that much farther. So,
you know, looking back after this year's results, do you think you have the system down now, or are there things you'd want to tweak on it to make it produce better lettuce?
I think in farming in general, the system's never down, so we're always looking, for ways to improve, whether it's the shape of the hoops, over the beds, and we dealt with wind issues this year, and we have a summer storm season with high winds and that, and so we were fixing shade cloth at times when we didn't want to. So, is there a better hoop, with those angles that's going to be better for the wind and that too. So we'll continue to tweak for sure.
But without this system, you're probably not growing lettuce very well here in Phoenix.
No, you're going to definitely give up. Probably be done in end of May at the latest. And so this allowed us to push, through the whole summer, which was a surprise even to me. So yeah, it was great.